Hi, I'm Claire Becker, and this presentation is for the Educated Citizen portfolio for my Bachelor's of Respiratory Science for the graduation year of 2022. First, I want to touch on my public issue. I chose gender identity. Gender identity is something that does affect everybody. There are a lot of false stigmas around it that create a lot of issues. There are still laws and policies in place in the federal and state government that allow for discrimination against alternatively gendered people. And I thought it was interesting to note that 3 out of 4 alternatively gendered adolescents do experience a mental health disorder. I have personal experience with gender identity in a pediatric population. Being from Minnesota, which is where my public issue is focused, I had students in a middle school as a paraprofessional that were alternatively gendered, and I found myself wanting to make them feel accepted and help them to understand that being true to themselves is wonderful and they should be accepted on those merits alone. They should not be accepted, or they should not be denied the right to be their true selves. I wanted to touch on being an effective communicator. An effective communicator uses critical thinking to generate, connect, and organize ideas in a written, oral, and nonverbal manner. One experience I had that helped me grow as an effective communicator was a mock interview I had with Andrew Skarka. He helped me shed light on my communication style and led me to reflect on my clinical experience with patient education. He told me that essentially my message gets lost because I give too much information and I struggle to get that information out in a way that makes sense. So basically my brain gets ahead of my mouth and my brain just keeps going a mile a minute. This is something I am always working on and I'm actively working on it now. I can apply this concept to gender identity to help me create more thoughtful conversations. It really helps when your audience understands what you're trying to convey. And in order to have a deep, meaningful conversation with people of alternative genders, I know that I need to be very careful in the presentation of my words so that I can get my thoughts across and show that I have empathy for them and that I want to be an ally and that I have respect for them. Another situation I had that taught me a great deal of being an effective communicator was with empathetic communication. I had a patient who was in the hospital for an asthma exacerbation and their mother was there. The father was not able to be there at the time. And she was under a lot of stress. She was going to be going home. Her child was excited. He was running around. She knew that leaving the hospital meant that his care was in her hands. He was about 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old. So she really was the one that was going to be taking care of them. And she was going to have to take all the information I was giving her and convey it to her husband in a way he could understand. And this just created a lot of stress for her. When someone's under stress, it's very hard for them to understand and remember all the information that they are getting. And it is really important as a respiratory therapist that I use patience and empathy and slow down and work with them to help them fully grasp any of the concepts that they are going to need when they are going home. I need to cater my teaching style and my communication style to that person and let them know that I am there for them and I am listening and I am helping. I can apply this to gender identity by using that same empathy technique to help me understand alternatively gendered people. I can change the way I communicate to fit the person and the situation and help everyone feel that they've had a meaningful and understanding conversation. A reflective individual routinely engages in habits of inquiry that influences ways of thinking and action. As a reflective individual, I did find that in my clinicals there were people that fit 3 categories. There were doers, neutrals, and avoiders. Doers are the people that were enthusiastic about their care. They were ready to hit the ground running and just break through any barriers that were before them. The neutrals, they were people that were compliant with their care, or close enough to compliant that they kind of cover that middle ground where they'll do what they need to do. They may not be super enthusiastic about it, or they might be a little enthusiastic about it, but they do what they need to do, essentially. And then there's the avoiders, the people that do not want to admit they have an illness or a diagnosis, and they are constantly finding ways to run away from their reality. I learned that avoiders will refuse care in a variety of ways. They will refuse to eat. They will refuse medications and treatments. They'll even refuse to communicate with their family members because those things will force them to accept the fact that they have a disease or an illness, and that they essentially are scared, is what it comes down to. And as a reflective individual, we need to reflect on each situation to identify these people and find ways to help them, overcome and improve their health, and understand that though their situation is scary, they can do this. When applying this to gender identity, there are a lot of people that deny their alternative gender because of what society thinks. And this can lead to some serious health concerns because they may develop negative coping skills and coping mechanisms. Emotional eating is an example. It can cause someone to become morbidly obese and essentially shorten their lifespan. It's something that we all need to work to identify in other people, just to make sure that we're doing the right thing for our friends and loved ones. Another situation I had that taught me a lot as a reflective individual was finding the source of a patient's discomfort. I had a patient who was in and receiving nebulizer treatments. He also had nitric oxide gas in line with his high flow setup. It took me a few days to find out why he was agitated. It took a lot of reflecting over the course of about 4 days for me to finally come to the conclusion, through a process of elimination and reflection, that it was actually the taste of his nebulizers that he did not like, and I was able to find a remedy for him, which was just sugar drops on his tongue when I was giving him a neb. It just took 1 or 2 drops is all he needed to be happy again. I learned that I do need more than just a single reflective moment in a patient's room to truly help them. I need regular and frequent reflective moments throughout my day, throughout my week, to solve a problem, and that I should not pass off a patient's discomfort as something that only needs to be thought about in their room or in the hospital. It is something I can reflect on throughout my day, even at home. When applying this to gender identity, reflecting on our interactions, we can find sources of discomfort for other people, and we can use that information to help alleviate discomfort and create a safe space for alternatively gendered people. I don't ever want any of my friends or family members that are alternatively gendered to come to me and feel that they can't have a conversation with me because I'm not thinking of them and their needs. I need to help create a safe space as an ally. A change agent uses the disciplines of liberal arts and sciences to analyze historical and contemporary situations and systems, to develop cultural competence, and to take appropriate initiative to effect change. One instance that taught me a lot as a change agent was identifying biases. I took a skin tone bias test last year in 2021 in one of my classes, and I found out I am actually moderately biased towards light skin over dark skin. This really surprised me. I thought I was a fairly neutral person, and I was working very hard to be so, but it wasn't enough. I did grow up in a community that was over 90% Caucasian, so it kind of makes sense that I would have this level of bias, despite trying to be a very neutral and open-minded person. I did learn that in order to combat a bias, you need to be aware of it and you need to accept it, and then change can come from that awareness. I can use this in respect to gender identity very easily. There are so many biases out there, and gender biases and gender identity biases are just a couple of them. I can use my skills in understanding biases and as a change agent to work to mitigate these biases in myself and hopefully in other people through effective communication. Another change agent situation I had was as a patient advocate. I had a terminally ill ventilated infant who was having periods of agitation. We thought it was the ventilator. We switched out 3 ventilators over the course of 2 days and finally came to the realization that the ventilator was not causing the agitation. The patient's agitation was causing the malfunctions in the ventilator. And this was due to him becoming accustomed to his analgesics, and he was having bouts of pain. I wish I had recognized earlier that it was his pain that was the source of the problem and not the ventilator causing the pain. I think in that situation, we all agree that we could have done better by that patient in that situation. I did learn that to be a better advocate, I need to improve myself and my understanding. I now am actively working to memorize the vital signs, the normal ranges and the abnormal ranges for patients of a variety of ages. I am working to eliminate any of these occurrences where sedation or analgesics may not be in the appropriate amount for my patients. I am working to be a better advocate. I think that this is something easily transferred to gender identity as well. You can be an ally and an advocate to gender alternative peoples. I learned that I should not let the small opportunities pass to say something meaningful, and that I can actively educate myself on gender identity issues to help make these positive changes. I had quite the journey to come to Methodist, and even at Methodist I had a very fun, very enjoyable, but very educating journey on my way to become an educated citizen. I thought that I had achieved quite a high level of self-growth before coming to Methodist, and I realize now that I was wrong. There was so much more growing I needed to do. The skills I have gained as an effective communicator, reflective individual, and change agent are ones that I will use in my daily life and in my career as a respiratory therapist, and I will never stop growing these skills. I want to thank everyone at Nebraska Methodist College for the experiences and the skills that I have gained, and knowing that I can go forward in my career and my life and provide care to the best of my ability and that ability will continually grow. Thank you.